Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Last year was a year of worsts for our economy. Even the bond market logged its worst year on record, leaving new retirees wondering, how can I stay retired? What am I supposed to do to help make sure I won't run out of money? And these concerns aren't going away so far in 2023 with new concerns about interest rates, inflation, bank failures even. But you are in the right place. We're so glad you're here with us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And Philip, not to pile on, but my goodness, I know we're still here just in the second quarter, but gosh, it feels like there's so much going on financially this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, the first quarter, it was not lacking any news or any volatility for sure with all the bank issues that we've seen. And we don't know if those are even over yet. Right. There may be some more to come.
Right.
And so we've just got this heightened sense of looking out now to see, okay, the first little crack we see, what does that mean? And so maybe that's helped in some way, or fashion. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, you're right. We will have to wait and see. There's so much uncertainty. You mentioned the bank failures, and Jerome Powell, he is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and he says, to your point, we don't know the full scope of all of these issues, but also we don't know whether the problems with the banking industry could cause high inflation to continue for even longer, causing that additional ripple effect. Take a listen.
Too early to say, really, whether these events have had much of an effect. It's hard for me to see how they would have helped the possibility, but I guess I would just say it's too early to say whether there really have been changes in that. The question will be how long this period is sustained. The longer it's sustained, then the greater will be the likely tightening in credit availability.
So to your point, there's just so much that we don't know. So many people are feeling uncertainty. What kind of questions, Philip, are you getting from people right now? What kind of concerns do people have about the state of our economy or even some of the stuff going on with bank failures?
Well, I will tell you that we are getting the conversation now about how much can I put in the bank? How do I need to title things to make sure that if I have more than the 250, I've got it allocated properly so that everything's covered. I mean, I'm getting that question a lot here lately. And on another note, I mean, like Jerome said, I mean, I think that the Fed, they have a responsibility here within the whole banking industry because to some degree, they're raising interest rates as fast and as furious as they have. I think it's historic. I can't think of another period in time where we've raised interest rates so fast and so high. So even good banks that did what they were supposed to do are getting caught in the crossfire because their bond portfolio is getting beat up because interest rates have gone up so high. So I think really the Fed has some responsibility in this whole thing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point and a really good point. And it just, like I said, it really just piles on to these feelings of uncertainty that people have. People are wondering what kind of moves to make. As you said, people have some different questions about what they should be doing. Walk us through your process, Philip, for helping someone analyze what's going on, because I think it probably starts with an analysis of what's going on with people's money and how they're positioned and where all their money is. I'm guessing that's the first step before you start helping them figure out what to do with it going forward.
Absolutely. And that's really the main focus of our core retirement design is to really calculate what amount of risk they should have in their portfolio and then measure that against the risk they actually do have in their portfolio. And what we find 60% of the time is that they've got more risk than what they thought they had. And believe me, Jen, you have to have some risk in your portfolio.
Sure.
I mean, risk is what helps us during inflationary periods of time. And so we need to have some risk, but we need to make sure it's the right amount of risk. And that's why we have the core retirement design that we put together. It's an area that folks need to be concerned about. They can give us a call at 863-285-3815, and we'll set up a time where we can talk to them about the amount of risk they have in their portfolio and make sure that it is where it needs to be. 30 minutes of our time to answer questions they may have. It's a phone call away. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. That number again, 863-285-3815. So, Philip, to your point, we do need to have a little bit of risk in our portfolio. This is how we keep pace with things like inflation over a long period of time in retirement. But let's talk for a minute about income. For people who are worried about how they can find or have consistent, reliable income in retirement, what are some of the options that you might talk to them about?
So I think there's several things that you can look at when it comes to income. I mean, we here at Statler Financial, we like the bucket approach, right? We use buckets of money. And we have a bucket for income, and that income can be anything from a dividend portfolio to a steady stream out of an annuity, or can be in a conservative portfolio that we're pulling money out of on a regular basis. So it depends on the circumstance. It depends upon the risk score that person has. And it depends upon how things need to be allocated within their portfolio. So we want to make sure that, number one, we have things allocated properly, that they have enough of their portfolio safe and secure, that it's not going to lose money. And then the rest of it we have allocated to a growth portfolio. So we want to make sure we have those numbers right for their circumstances to make sure that their income is protected.
And Philip, talk a little bit about how important is it for us to be diversified with our income sources in retirement. We'll go back to diversification with our investments here in a second, but when it comes to those different sources of income, how important is it for us to have some diversification there?
Well, we need to have some diversification because you don't ever know what's happening in the marketplace, right? I mean, if you think about it, you got Social Security. Well, that's safe. If you have a pension, that's pretty safe. And so we got that coming in. Where's the third leg coming from to make up your income stream? And so we want to make sure that we've got a steady stream coming in. And if you have a dividend portfolio, well, most dividend portfolios are pretty consistent, though. They can, get caught off guard, and some companies reduce their payout. And so we want to make sure that that's continuing to be monitored. We can use bonds to create that income as well. So there's different mechanisms. Again, we wanted some diversification within that income source, so we're not relying just on one way that we're getting income out of our portfolio.
And going back to this idea of diversification and just making sure that we are finding the right balance. That's the other thing that I want to make sure we talk about before we go to break here, Philip. You said earlier that we do need to make sure that we have growth. Not only do we need income, of course we need income in retirement, but we need smart ways to get growth because of how long we're living, how long this income needs to last. Talk a little bit about how your process helps people find really the right balance. It's kind of a balancing act. We need multiple different things with our money, but we have to make sure that we're getting the balance right.
Well, here's the deal, Jen. When we, in our workshops now, we really lay this out.
Yeah.
I think there's two areas of diversification that people don't think about. They think of diversification within a portfolio, but they need to look at diversification in regards to the attributes of their money, right? We need a growth bucket.
Mm-hmm.
We need a safe bucket. We need a liquid bucket. So we need three buckets. And our job as fiduciaries is to make sure that they have the right allocation between all those different attributes of money. So that's one diversification. Obviously, within that, you diversify each of those different attributes. But then the second diversification that I don't see anybody really looking at is tax diversification.
Okay. Yep.
We got 90% of folks' net worth is tied up in retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, which means they're going to have to pay tax on that money when they pull it out. Maybe they got a non-qualified account they've saved outside of that. But very few people have that much money in what we call tax-free accounts, Roths, those type of things. So we need that diversification to be leveled out as well. And that's one of the things that we're really focused on now here at Statler Financial, is making sure that we got the tax diversification the way it needs to be. So there's more than one kind of diversification we need to have within our net worth.
Such an important thing for us to keep in mind as we are thinking about how it is that we'll be creating income in retirement. The last thing you want when you retire, Philip, is to run out of money. And I'm so glad you talked a little bit about diversification and some of these strategies, because concerns about volatility and interest rates, inflation, and bank failures, these things just aren't making it any easier for people who are trying to figure out if they can afford to retire, Philip, and to stay retired.
That's right. Running out of money is often the biggest fear for so many of the folks out there.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure that we can help alleviate that. And really, that comes by having a plan in place. You've worked hard to save the money you have so that it lasts throughout your lifetime. But you need to have a retirement income strategy, because if you don't have a game plan, how can you play the game? And retirement is a game you need to win. Folks, listen, you need to have some type of written retirement income plan. And that's what we strive to do for our clients. There's 3 legs that we really look at within our core retirement design. One is risk, volatility, risk in the portfolio. We want to make sure that we take care of that. Second is taxes. How can we reduce your taxes over your lifetime as much as possible? Maybe even being able to get you in a situation where you can be tax-free the rest of your life. A big deal. And then lastly is putting together that written retirement income plan to make sure that you never run out of money. That adds so much more certainty to our retirement. Look, give us a call. Let's spend 30 minutes on the phone to see if you are heading down the right path for your retirement. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Again, give us a call. It's 30 minutes of my time where I'm willing to answer your questions you may have and make sure that you are where you need to be for your retirement. That number one more time is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. More insights coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.
In times of volatility, the only wrong move is not making one. Call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services today and find out where you currently stand with your portfolio. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago and you looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Well, it could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Team have helped hundreds of families plan for retirement for more than 20 years. They'll help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up a visit with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial. Just give them a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. I am Jen Rezac alongside who is most likely to be comfortable and confident with their retirement? Well, there are a few things that you can do to help secure your financial future. Philip's going to help us break this all down. Here's where this information comes from today, Philip. The Employee Benefit Research Institute did a study, and they found that retirees who say they feel comfortable in retirement have all done the same 4 things. So over the next few minutes of the show today, we want to share these 4 keys with our listeners. And the first one is going into retirement with little or no debt. Tell me your thoughts on that one.
Well, you would think that that's a no-brainer, right? I mean,
Sure.
Having no debt is a huge deal because every dollar that you owe somebody is a dollar that you can't use to create income in retirement.
Yeah.
And so that really becomes a big deal. And where I see folks have the most issue when it comes to retirement is kind of twofold.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, they retire too early and they retire with too much debt. Both of those scenarios typically don't end up as well as we would like them to and cause a heck of a lot more stress in retirement.
Right. Well, and again, Philip, we just have to recognize how everything changes with our financial situation as we get into retirement. You've got to be very strategic with what's going on here rather than having to spend down your retirement savings to pay off credit card bills or whatever, because then you're not getting to do the things that you wanted to do. So just one of the things we want to think about. I imagine, Philip, it's also important that we avoid racking up new debt in retirement as well. We don't want to be in this situation where we paid it all off. Now we're in retirement and we have new debt. Talk a little bit about heading that off and maybe working on a spending plan for your retirement expenses.
Well, you're right. And you don't want to pay off debt and then all of a sudden start racking up more debt and not have a way to pay it off once you've retired because, hey, the income changes, right? Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure we've got some realistic budget to make sure that we can live within our means when it comes time for that retirement because your income's fixed. It's not like we can go work a couple extra hours or do this or do that to create more income. And so, one, we want to work to pay off our debt before we go into retirement. 2, we don't want to create more debt once we are in retirement. We don't want to have any more debt. And the worst case scenario is we have people that go into retirement with debt and they keep adding to it. So be precise, make sure that you have those things paid off going into retirement. And so, Jen, that really plays into the reason that I believe so strongly in making sure that folks have a written retirement income plan, because that income plan really gives us the idea of here's how much income we can expect on a very conservative basis to know, hey, look, this is what we got to budget to. If we're not there yet, maybe we need to work another year or so to make that happen. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. If you do not have a written retirement income plan and you are 5 years out from retirement or you are already retired, it's not too late to get that written retirement income plan in place. That number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. That number again, 863-285-3815. Talking today about the keys to a comfortable retirement. The Employee Benefit Research Institute had this study, and they talked to retirees who said they feel comfortable in retirement, and the same 4 things kept coming up over and over again. So that's why we're sharing this here with you today. So the first one, as we were just talking about, going into retirement with little or no debt, really having a good handle on that debt situation. The second key to a comfortable retirement, Philip, I want you to talk about this one, is having a clear spend down strategy. Tell me what that means to have a spend down strategy.
So for us, it means having well, kind of back to what I said earlier, having a written retirement income plan that really shows, okay, how am I going to use my money? Where is it going to come from? Because that's the key to that income plan is one, when's it going to start? And where am I going to take my money from? So often, Jen, I see people that have a lot of stuff, right? They have a lot of accounts or a lot of products, annuities. They have a brokerage account, an IRA, a Roth. They have a lot of things. but they don't have a plan of how those things are all going to work together. What is the strategy for using it all? And so that's what the written retirement income plan really does. It puts together a strategy that says, okay, look, for the next 5, 7 years, whatever that is in the plan, this is where my money is going to come from. And it's going to last that 5 years or 7 years, whatever it's built for. And then that bucket's gone. We've spent that bucket down, and now we go to bucket number 2. And that bucket's going to last us another 7, 10 years. That bucket's gone. We're going to go to the next bucket. So it's creating that system of where our money's coming from and making sure that, hey, look, I mean, I build my plans out to age 100. If I'm still alive at age 100, I still have money in my accounts. Yes, I live longer, right? I mean, that's the key, Jen, is having that money left at age 100.
Right. Because the whole thing is, Philip, a lot of us, we might not live to 100, but we could live into our 90s. Or what if we do end up living just longer than we thought we would? We don't want to be spending at a rate that's too quick early in our retirement, so then we potentially run out later. Talk a little bit more about the transition that happens, Philip, when we go from this idea of saving for retirement, which is what we're doing during our working years. We're always making sure that there's money going into that 401k or that IRA. Talk a little bit about this transition when we go from saving for retirement then to figuring out how to manage our savings and how to spend it down responsibly in retirement.
Well, Jen, when you're working, then we've got a budgeted amount that's going to our retirement account. So we're putting money away every paycheck into our 401k. And that, because we're still working, the ups and downs of the market don't really, I mean, yeah, they bother us, but we know we're not depending upon that money right now to provide us any income. So the ups and downs, we can weather those. Obviously, the closer we get to retirement, the less volatility we want in that account, and the more safety we should be implementing within our 401ks. So that we don't get a situation like happened in 08, 09, right? That people couldn't retire because their 401ks had been cut in half. And so we don't want that to happen. But here's the difference. When you flip the switch and you now are retired, we have no more income coming in from our job. We're not adding to that anymore. So we have to change our total mindset. Right. To a whole different way of thinking. And that's the big deal, because in the world we live in, most folks out there who deal with advisors or brokers, it's all growth. So when you stop working, you need to change. You need to work with somebody that actually works in that element of income planning, retirement planning, making sure that what you have is going to last throughout your lifetime. Is a different mindset. It's a whole different strategy when it comes to putting together those portfolios, Jen.
Right. What do people overlook when it comes to this transition or this whole different mindset? What do people overlook when it comes to how they're making this transition and starting to spend down their savings?
Well, there's a couple things that I think people kind of overlook. One of the biggest ones that I see overlooked is taxes. People think that I retired and so taxes aren't going to be an issue. Well, taxes can be a huge issue, especially most people, they have their IRA or their 401k. Well, that's when you take money out of that, that's taxable income. And that taxable income adds to your income, adds to the amount of your Social Security that ends up being taxable. It creates and can create a pretty big tax nightmare for folks that they didn't really realize was gonna happen to them. And the other thing I think people really need to understand is that, hey, when you flip that switch and you're retired, that bucket of money, isn't going to continue to grow by leaps and bounds. We want it just to gradually go up as we're taking money out of it. I mean, I think those are probably the two main areas that we see people really grapple with when it comes to retirement.
Philip, let's talk a little bit about the process here for helping people address some of the concerns that they have, help them avoid mistakes and oversights as they're putting together their strategy for retirement. Talk a little bit about what it is, the process that you walk people through as you're helping them put together that retirement income strategy.
Absolutely. So we start with our core retirement design, where we want to look to see, one, how much more volatility is going to be in your portfolio. And we do that by assessing a risk value of your current portfolio and compare that to your risk number. How compatible are those two? Second, we want to look at how can we get you into a tax-free living style, right? What can we do? Are there things we can do? Can we put a plan together to start converting your IRAs to Roths now and get you into a situation down the road where maybe we don't have to pay any more taxes the rest of our life? And then third, we want to make sure that we've got a written retirement income plan that doesn't use pie in the sky numbers, that uses down to earth, really conservative growth projections to make sure that the money we have is going to last us the rest of our life. That's the key in retirement. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis. You can also go to our website at statlerfinancial.com. There's a link to our schedule there where you can schedule a 30-minute, no obligation phone consultation. That number again, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler, talking today about a study from the Employee Benefit Research Institute that found that retirees who consider themselves to be comfortable in retirement have done the same 4 things. We'll continue breaking down the 4 keys to a comfortable retirement in just a moment. Stay with us. This is, again, the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
You can't see it, but you sure can feel it. The economy is struggling right now. Do you know how it might affect your retirement? Some retirement plans take into account economic downturns, stock market dips, interest rate fluctuations. Does yours? Take charge of your retirement by calling Philip Statler at 863-285-3815. Philip and his team at Statler Financial have been helping families prepare for retirement for over 20 years. They will help address the current economic situation and help you create a retirement plan designed to give you the confidence to move forward. Opportunities can exist regardless of economic conditions. Call the team, Philip Statler with Statler Financial at 863-285-3815 and find out ways you can prepare now for your retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Call them now. Schedule a visit. Let's get started. Firm offers insurance services. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler and co-host Jen Rezac.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. I am Jen Rezac alongside, talking today about this study from the Employee Benefit Research Institute. It found that retirees who consider themselves to be, quote, comfortable in retirement have done the same 4 things. So for those who missed it, Philip, let's talk about the first 2 keys to a comfortable retirement. We just talked about these at length in the previous segment, but let's recap those real quickly for those who are just joining us.
Absolutely, Jen. So the first one is that we want to go into retirement with little or no debt. And obviously no debt is better. And once we get there, we don't want to accumulate any debt. All that debt adds is some complexity to our retirement plan. And it also adds a lot of stress in retirement as well. So that's the first thing that we talked about. And the second thing is we want a clear plan, spend down strategy. How are we going to spend down our accounts that we have now and make sure that they're going to last as long as we need them to, because nobody's promised tomorrow. We don't know how long we're going to live. Mm-hmm. So we have to plan as if we're going to live longer. I mean, I look at age 100, right? Because that seems to be an age that not many people make it past that, but we see some. So we want to make sure there's still some money left at age 100 in case you're that person that makes it to 102 or 105, right? So that's kind of what we look at.
All right, just a couple of good things to keep in mind there. So, Philip, let's move on. The next key is having some sort of employer-provided assistance, which sounds pretty good when we can get something from our company, right?
Absolutely. So that would be a pension, right? We're pretty much talking about a pension here. And so, however, our pensions are, they're going away.
Not very many people have them anymore, right?
That's right. Government employees maybe still have them, but the private sector is getting to be less and less. Now, that don't get me wrong, they are contributing, right? If you have a 401k, your employer is contributing to that 401k, so they're putting some money away for you on your behalf. But you got to be putting some money in too, and ultimately, when we get ready to retire, we're going to have what's in that account. That's what we're going to have to make sure we get through the rest of our life. And so that can be, to me, that can be scary for folks.
Yeah.
That, they pull the trigger and they're getting ready to retire and say, this is what I got. It's got to last me the rest of my life. And so, I think that's where we're going to see employer money. Hopefully you get a pension. You're going to get some Social Security, those things, but you've got to make up for some of it yourself, Jen.
Right. And so, again, for people who aren't lucky enough to have that private company pension, let's talk a little bit about how they can work to achieve a comfortable retirement, because they're missing a private company pension that so few people have.
Absolutely right. And that really leads us to the final key to kind of a comfortable retirement. That's having some sort of guaranteed income. So security, right? That's pretty much everybody's going to have Social Security. And that's a guaranteed source of income that most of us are going to have. It's not a pension, but it's a guaranteed income stream, right? And so if you have a pension, then that's good. But for most of us, we're going to have to create our own pension, right? We're going to have something there for ourselves. We're going to be responsible to create that for ourselves. And so we kind of have to do that. And that's really where the income planning process comes into play. And that's why we need a wide variety of different vehicles in place to do that. Now, I know a lot of folks think of annuities. I mean, that's really what a pension is. A pension is an annuity that your employer bought for you and is paying you out the rest of your life. And so we need to use the same thing when we're trying to develop a guaranteed retirement source for you. And we do that through using some annuities, using some tactical portfolios. It's a mixture of everything. And so, a lot of times people look at annuities in a negative context, but like any vehicle out there, it has pros and it has cons. And so when we look at that annuity, yes, we've got to hold it for a certain period of time before we can access it, right? And so if we access it early, there's what they call surrender charges. We get penalized for taking money out early. The other part, though, is that we get some safety built into that index annuity, right? It's safe. It's not going to go down in value if the market goes down. And so that's an area that we have to look to when it comes to those annuities. We need everything. We need all the tools in the toolbox to accomplish kind of this one thing, and that's creating the income that we're going to need throughout the rest of our lives. And again, it starts with our core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis. 30-minute, no obligation phone consultation. We'll answer your questions. We'll make sure you're on the right path to that retirement you dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. We've been talking today about the keys to a comfortable retirement. And Philip, as we talk about some of these different options for our income, one thing that wasn't really on here, but I still want to ask you about is Social Security. I know that wasn't really one of the income options that we talked about, but that is going to be something that is a factor for a lot of people. How do we make sure we're making the right decision with our Social Security as we are trying to work toward this goal of a comfortable retirement?
It's a good question, Jan, because Social Security is for most people their biggest source of income in retirement. And so by making a wrong decision here, they can substantially reduce the amount of income they're going to get over the rest of their retired lives. And so what we do is we run different scenarios and look at it. And as a matter of fact, I had one a couple of weeks ago. We were running. They wanted to know what happened at 62, 65, and 67. They didn't want to work past 67, but they wanted to know, okay, look, if I look at those different time periods of starting to take Social Security, and in his case, and it's different for everybody, so everybody's case is going to be different, but in his case, he actually could take the same amount of money starting at age 62, but delay his Social Security till 67 and actually end up with more money at age 100 in his account than if he started at 62.
Wow.
Now, it doesn't work that way, obviously, for everybody, but that's why it's so important that you look at the whole picture. When really is the best time to take your Social Security? And just because you want to quit working at 62 doesn't mean you need to start taking your Social Security at 62. Granted, you need income. That's why you need that income plan in place to figure out where's the best place to take it from. Maybe it is Social Security, but a lot of times it isn't. It's delaying that Social Security till 65 or 67.
So aside from making decisions like this with Social Security and our sources of income and having that income strategy, what else do we need to think about as we are heading into retirement?
Well, I think that one of the big things that I think we need to think about now as going into retirement is taxes. I just really believe that our tax rate system, our system, and the deficits that we run and the amount of debt we have accumulated all point to the fact that we are going to have to raise taxes. None of us like it. We don't want to have to pay it. But in order for this country to continue on, I don't see any other way. And so taxes are going to have to go up. So that's one that I think that they need to be aware of. They need to plan for and do everything they can to pay tax now and not later. Second is going to be healthcare. Healthcare continues to go up by over 8% a year. I saw some statistic the other day that really did give me some reason to reflect because it had gone up so much in the last 10 years. But healthcare, long-term care is different than healthcare, right? Long-term care is assisted living, nursing home, that type of thing. That's something we need to have a plan in place for. Not that you have to have insurance, but you need to have a plan in place. How am I going to deal with it if I end up in assisted living? How am I going to deal with it if I end up in a nursing home? What's my plan of action to get through that? And I think the other thing that folks need to realize and need to really think about, and I think it really came to light the last year and a half, and that's inflation. We rock and roll for a lot of years with really, really, really low inflation. I mean, I'm talking about 0.5% to 1.5%, less than 2% for a lot of years in the last 20 years. And so now we're seeing inflation raise its ugly head, and we need to be prepared for what if that continues? What are we going to do? What's our plan to make sure we can get through that and not cut into our spending plan? So I think those are some things that folks need to prepare for as they head into retirement.
So, Philip, let's talk a little bit about how having a comprehensive strategy, how that can address all these different concerns, because there's so many different financial concerns, and a comprehensive strategy can help address all these concerns and help us feel more confident about our financial future.
Well, Jen, I think that that's where when you're working with a fiduciary that has that responsibility to the client to make sure that all these areas are addressed. How often I hear, well, I'm a financial advisor, I can't really give you any tax advice. And well, it doesn't mean you can't help plan for those things, right? We need to be planning for those type of things. And that's really what our core retirement design does. It walks you through the risk, the taxes, and the income plan. Folks, listen, if you are already retired, it's not too late. And if you're 5 years out from retirement, you are perfectly set to start that planning process now so that you're ready to pull that trigger in 5 years or maybe earlier if circumstances change. Folks, give us a call, 863-285-3815. Schedule your 30-minute, no obligation phone consultation where we'll walk you through our process. We'll listen to you. We'll answer your questions. We'll make sure that what you have lined up is going to get you to where you want to be. Give us a call, 863-285-3815. That's where the core retirement design starts, is with that phone call, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. We'll be back.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago and you looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Well, it could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Team have helped hundreds of families plan for retirement for more than 20 years. They'll help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up a visit with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial. Just give them a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Sounds like the mailman's here.
It's time to answer questions from the Statler Financial Mailbag.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services here in Sebring. He is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. And Philip gets questions each and every week about all things retirement. So we're going to open up our mailbag. We're going to go over some common retirement questions. We have a really good collection of questions. We figure you probably have some pretty similar questions as well. So hopefully you learn a little something from these folks who have some of these questions. And Philip, let's get into it. First question comes from Gary, who is from Wauchula, who's been looking forward to retirement for years, but now that he's less than 2 years away from his target retirement date, he's starting to panic a little bit. And Gary wants to know if this is normal. Do other people get cold feet about retirement? How do I shake this off so I can enjoy myself? Boy, isn't that the way?
Yeah, Gary, that's it's not unusual to have that happen. I mean, I get people that the closer they get, the more real it becomes, the more nervous they get, and we have to just sit down and reassure them that that's why we have a plan in place. That's why we've done the planning. We've done the hard work to make sure that everything's going to, plan the way that we've got it put in the plan, and so that's what it is. Now, I'll just tell you that I have some folks that, as the closer they get, because they didn't actually write it down, they do keep pushing it back a little bit. And finally, though, something happens and they say, okay, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to retire. Mm-hmm. And they get that relief once they make that decision to, okay, this is my last day, and move forward because they have a plan in place. So they know where their income's coming from. and how that's going to flow.
Mm-hmm.
The other case, just for an example, I have a couple of clients that, we put together the plan and they've come in and said, you know what, I'm not going to make it to that date. I'm retiring.
We're done. We're out of here.
We're done. And that's why we have a plan, because that plan takes those things into consideration. And we know, hey, if we decide to retire a little early, this is what we're going to do. Plop that plan into place and we're ready to go.
Well, and I get cold feet. I get even when we're going on a vacation, right before I get on the plane, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. Why am I even messing with this? I don't even know if I planned it well enough. And then I have a great time when I go. I think we get cold feet so many times with so many little things. So, of course, with something as big as your retirement, I can't take a vacation without wanting to back out at the last minute.
It's change, right? We don't like change. And so that's a change in our whole situation. So that's obviously going to
makes perfect sense.
Some issue. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Great question, though, Gary. We appreciate you sending that in. Next up is Patrick from Lake Placid, who has some friends who are struggling. This other couple that they know, the husband was in a debilitating car wreck, and they were not prepared to live on the wife's paycheck. They still don't know if this friend is going to recover enough to work again, but this has Patrick and his wife wanting to make sure that they would be okay if something similar happens to one of them. They just want to know, how do they make sure? Where do they get started?
So a couple things I would say there, because that's there's a lot in that question.
Yeah.
I think you start with preparing a net worth statement for yourself right now and determining, how much do you have on the liability side? And then let's look at the income. Where's the income coming from? And this is a case where we don't think about it, and we probably don't talk about it much on the show at all, really, is disability insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where things like having a disability can pay off, and kind of like long-term care insurance. We don't want to think about it, but it's out there. It's something we need to be planning for. And this is no different. We need to have a plan in place, whether that's having enough assets to survive. And how do I look at it? I look at it this way. We build our plans so that we could cut off one person's income and say, okay, how would that work? What would happen? What ifs?
Yeah.
Right. We can walk through some of those scenarios and determine, what's going to happen. What are we going to have to do to make sure that we could survive? And that's just part of the process.
Right. And those are tough things to think about. But the reality is, Philip, none of us is promised tomorrow. And I think we all know someone, or we've experienced ourselves, where everything changes in the blink of an eye. One phone call and everything that you thought you had planned is different. And we just have to face that fact, which isn't a lot of fun sometimes, but gosh, how much better is it to have the money side taken care of if you do have one of these catastrophic incidents, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not just that, but you have a spouse that passes away.
Yeah.
That's so, that changes the dynamic totally. And what do we do? How do we do that? That's why we build out ours plans so that we can do what ifs. Okay, mm-hmm. What if John dies in year 5 of retirement? What's going to happen? And I think that's important.
Yeah, it is, and it's important to work with somebody who understands what all those different what if scenarios are. You've seen enough of this over the years, Philip, to know some of those things to kind of stress test for, and some of those what ifs that can happen, because it's hard for those of us who don't do this every day to even think about all the different things that could happen. But and you can't predict it, certainly, but you've seen a lot over the years.
People retire, they figure, hey, I'm going to have both people's Social Security, we'll have this little pension, we'll take our RMDs, we'll be fine. And then, one of the spouses passes away, and now, oops.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's do one more. Beth, also here in Sebring. Beth's oldest daughter is looking at some college loans, and she has asked about co-signing, would like mom and dad to co-sign. What are some things to consider before Beth signs on the dotted line?
Yeah, I have a lot of caution to kind of throw out there for this this question, Jen, as I look at that. Beth, don't just think twice, think 3 or 4 times before doing that. I unfortunately have some real life experience with this issue. I've had grandchildren that had grandparents co-sign on loans, student loans, and they got, the degree they were seeking at a private school, which was astronomically expensive. Or, she wasn't going to make $30,000 or $40,000 a year. And when she graduated, she had $150,000 in student loans. So things like that are concerning to me. So number one, I would never, ever recommend co-signing on a student loan. There's other avenues out there. I mean, it's just, you get to a point and you have to look out for your retirement. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's your kid. We want to get them through college. But a lot of times I see kids that they're going to a school that's expensive. They don't know what they want to do.
Taking that meandering route to their major.
Yeah. or they pick a job that isn't going to make $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of an article I read not too long ago about Columbia University, that high price school. Kids are graduating there with music degrees and social service degrees with $200,000 in student loan debt.
Gosh.
And the most they're ever going to make in the jobs they've chosen is $50,000 a year.
Gosh, how do you do that? Oh, wow.
You can't. It's just problematic. That's a whole nother issue that we're dealing with in our country. Bottom line is that you've got to stay true to your goals of getting to retirement, and not to say that they would default, but statistically speaking, in today's world, student loans are just a problem, and you don't want your assets hanging on the line for that student loan debt. So I would just caution you to stay away from that and focus on your retirement. That's what's going to be important to you down the road. Folks, listen, there's a lot of questions that we can answer. There's a lot of things that go into planning for your retirement. But it really and truly starts with risk. Knowing the risk you have in your portfolio, knowing the risk to your income that you might have out there. It's all about risk and making sure that you don't have too much as you head into retirement. Let me help answer those questions for you. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Give us a call, schedule your financial x-ray, and let us stress test your current portfolio. 863-285-3815.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. That's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip. I'm Jen Rizak. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week.
In times of volatility, the only wrong move is not making one. Call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services today and find out where you currently stand with your portfolio. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.